Pike from Royal Page Atlantic and the Pike Group. So I typically, had agents on here who I was talking about the market with. I've had a mortgage broker on here, but I've never had this industry yet. So I'm going to leave it up to you both to introduce who you are, what you do, what company you work with, and how long you've been in the business. Then I'll get right into my line of questioning. So go right ahead.
Thank you, Sandra, for having us on this meeting call. My name is Cherie Gaudet. I'm an appraiser, a partner with Ingram, Varner. Our office is in Bedford. We have a team of residential and commercial appraisers, and I've been with the company since it started. So that's been many, many years ago, let's say 30 plus, and leave it at that.
Yeah. And I'm Peter MacLellan. Cherie and I worked together for a lot of years, and we're on committees and that sort of thing. I'm the commercial manager with Boutillier and Associates. And this almost to the day is 50 years for me.
Oh, wow. You must have started when you were 10, did you?
I did. I started at birth.
All righty. Cherie, the market has just been a roller coaster since, April 2020 when COVID hit. And now here we are in September 2022. What differences or shifts are you seeing right now?
Well, Sandra, I've seen significant shift from when this all started, the red hot market. More recently, there was a trend going, and there was a fast trend from the get-go. Certainly, as we know, the pandemic, and sort of that's when all hell broke loose. So it has only been for myself and my job probably the last maybe 6 weeks that I'm seeing prices becoming more stable and not the significant price growth that obviously we had seen for the last 2 years. And in terms of my workload, it was extremely, extremely busy. We were unfortunately working way too many hours trying to pump work out because like a lot of the population, homeowners were getting more, taking advantage of the market and refinancing their homes. And of course, that required, in most cases, an appraisal to be completed. So I was literally ran off my feet. And so now I can honestly say I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, trying to get caught up and hoping maybe, we'll be able to take some deep breaths and get things back to a normal level. That
understood.
Yes.
So Peter, would it be fair to say that during the pandemic, most houses that you would have praised, regardless of what people were paying for, if it was $100,000 or if it was $200,000 over asking, that most homes would have praised out because it was what someone was willing to pay for. So what I want to know is the difference from then to the difference now where, home prices aren't, I guess, over asking isn't as crazy as it was back, a few months ago. So are homes still appraising out the same pace they were back during the pandemic?
I would say back during the pandemic, obviously those bidding wars created unprecedented situations. And there were sales that were going well above the market for a whole lot of motivational reasons. And most appraisers would not have given a lot of weight to those abnormally high sales, but there was a very, very active market, even during the very short times. I don't see a big decrease in properties.
Would you say, is it fair to say that would more deals be falling on appraisals now more so than they would have been during the pandemic, or are
absolutely not? No, and very few sales actually fell because of the appraisals. The appraised values were coming in what the properties were worth and essentially what people were bidding for them. And there were just a few abnormal sales that were extremely high, but you take that into consideration in the business. But for the most part, no. Sales
So
sales weren't falling through because of appraised value.
I've been talking about this one particular property in Sackville. So it was a baby split on High Rigger that listed at 279 and sold for 700. Now on that street, just a month or two ago, the same type of house, baby split, only sold for 331. If that other house were to sell now that, that sold at 500, would it appraise out the way it did during the pandemic, do you think?
Actually, one sale doesn't it never sets a market. In terms of if we had a couple of the lower price sales, like I don't know if there might have been motivation or on behalf of the seller with this recent one that sold substantially lower. But in that case, obviously we would have discussion with the realtor. But if indeed there was a basis or support, and it would appear that one sale that happened that much lower did represent market, then unfortunately, it would be highly unlikely, if all things were equal, that if the property that had sold so much higher back when, it would be difficult certainly to support anything, to that level at this time. And unfortunately, that might be a trend going forward. Having said that, Sandra, I think we're always going to see some increase. And as you know, you're well aware, I know how up you are on statistical information. We're still seeing an increase from this time last year, obviously not from last month or, months ago, but I'm confident and optimistic that, we're still going to see an increase. But if we're looking at resales, as you said, on that street, it could be an issue moving forward.
It was an abnormal sale.
Yeah.
And you'd probably give it little to no weight. Or there could be abnormal low sales on that street. But I echo Cherie's sentiment. For the most part, prices are just coming back to where they should have been all along, and they're stable or increasing. We're coming out of it.
A question for either one of you. The media keeps going on about how sales prices are dropping, or they are dropping. And my take on that is, it's just the rest of the market got to catch up to that $500,000 sale that happened on High Rigger. What are your thoughts about what the media is saying? And let's say just from my parallel, that I just think the rest of the market has to catch up.
Right. And I agree. I'll just say a couple of lines, and then Peter, you too. I feel that a lot of the media, like everything, things do get blown up. And I also think a lot of that media, they're looking at the market, the real estate market on a national level. As we know, Nova Scotia it's a different market now. We've got a huge migration. We've got a lot of our population growth, and particularly since the pandemic, and people are working remotely. We all know in our industry that this growth certainly is supporting our real estate market, and maybe not so much so in the larger cities. So I guess I get defensive when the media, they're comparing us with larger centers where they are seeing drastic price drops. But I like I said previously, I'm optimistic that we're not going to see that here.
Nice.
I follow trends, and I've worked all across Canada, and I follow the trends. Toronto, Vancouver, Saskatchewan. That's what's happening at the macro level. But to be quite honest with you, Nova Scotia is one of the very few provinces in this country that's bucking the trend of decreasing values. In spite of what they say, although if you look at some of the local realtors, they'll agree with me that prices are not going down in Halifax. They're not going to go down for the next 3 years. I do a lot of commercial work, more so than residential, and the demand for new retail space, apartment buildings, office buildings, they're all going up. the inventory for residential is way down. The bidding wars have gone with the residential, but now we're getting bidding wars in rental properties. Now,
Interesting.
the values in Nova Scotia, in spite of what you look at the big picture, the banks, everybody else is, Nova Scotia is going up, stable. It's probably going to continue to go up for the next 3 years.
So Cherie, you were around, obviously, when the ships start here and we had, that bump in sales. And then after that, it took about, 3 to 5 years. If you wanted to sell your house, it was probably best for you to wait. Do you see that potentially happening now? In order for someone to really do well in their home, they should wait at least 3 to 5 years before they sell it?
I would, in terms of the shipbuilding, I think that was this whole red hot market, it wasn't like a month or two. It was a trend that went on for a couple of years, until more recently. So I really feel that in terms of holding on to your property, real estate has always been a great investment overall in every country or city. But so I think that there's a lot of different questions that would go into that, whether to hold on or not. I feel that if, as Peter and I both said, we feel that on more of a stabilized level, we're still going to be seeing an increase year after year. So if you don't have if your demographic or your situation is that you're comfortable in your home, you want to sit tight, I would say there's no urgency to move forward and sell your house. I think that it's a long-term investment, and I guess I think there's other things that might go into that decision-making process. But I think right now with the rental market and the 0% vacancy, it's really where are we going to go if we do sell? We've got a home buyer has to consider that also.
During the pandemic, who was your main client? Was it people who were refinancing, like to take the equity out and to do some upgrades to their home, or was it resale? So who would have been like the biggest client in residential that you would have completed?
Woo. As I say, residential, other than multifamily, is a small part of my market.
Mm-hmm.
But my main clients through the whole pandemic have been people coming in. They're buying the retail with 3 apartments upstairs, the duplexes, that sort of thing. 4 units, hot, very, very hot. They were the main clients. The bank sent us a lot of work. Private developers sent us a lot of work. B lenders really increased. They've come into the market big time. And I'd say a large number of developers and companies were just re-looking at their portfolios and what their condos were worth, what their mix was worth. So it was a really mixed bag during that weird time.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't any one category, and I follow them. I couldn't tell you which category was sending us the most work.
For me, certainly, it was refi, definitely. In terms of the purchases and purchase and sale, as you are well aware, a lot of offers were coming in with no conditions, including financing. So that, it wasn't always every time we had activity that appraisals were required or financing was. People were coming in with the ability to waive the conditions, as I know that you would have experienced in your career.
So what other types of services, would you offer the general public apart from refinancing?
Okay.
Oh,
I think, well, Peter being on a commercial level, but really we offer many services. One being, at the end of the day, it's to provide our client with market value. But there are many reasons that the public would require that. One certainly being for financing or purchase, but we also do litigation work for matrimonial reasons, division split, that sort of thing. That has been, along with refinancing, a lot of jobs in my office. With the pandemic, I think there's been a lot of divorces, and that certainly has kept me busy too. But we also do assessment appeals and litigation, expropriation,
Income tax.
estate for estate reasons, and there are many reasons why people order appraisals, for sure, or what our service provides.
What would be the cost of an average appraisal, let's just say on a 2,000 square foot home?
So that, fortunately, has gone up with the demand for appraisers during this peak. Typically for a single family home, and if it's located within metro and standard, not income, just one unit, and not exclusive on the water, but 750.
Okay.
And turnaround time more recently has been probably a month. So for us to even turn our head to a job. So it's really it's changed, yeah. And I can tell you, prior to this boom, and it might be that we have to lower our prices as things settle down, but prior to the pandemic, a typical residential single family home within metro, we were charging $450. So that's just supply and demand, I guess.
Well, that's like in anything that would have happened during the pandemic. Wow. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules today, because it's certainly enlightening for us. And, everybody is, the sky is falling, but I agree with you both. It's not falling here in Halifax the way it would be, in central Canada, for example.
Thank you, Sandra.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yes, you too.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.